Okie dokie. So now I'm going to show you what happens with these lovely mitered corners. When you've done a corner and you lift it up, you can see that you've got this lovely little tuck here. Got fluff in there as well. You've got this lovely little mitre. So what you want to do is fold your fabric the opposite way of your mitre. This is your choice. You don't have to do this. The opposite way of your mitre. And if I put a couple of clips in here, I'm coming over and I'm going to run my stitch in the ditch foot, pretty much my stitch in the ditch, along my binding line, but it's also just over my stitching line. Now what that means is, if I put a pin in and show you, what that means is on the back it's going to stitch onto your actual placemat. If you wanted it over further, you could pull it over further and you would end up with a little bit of a top stitch there. But it's too tight. I don't like it. I like it nice and loose, and I just like it to stitch into there. And I'll do it with this cream thread so you can see. Okay, so I'm just showing you there. I don't normally pin it, but I just want to show you. So if I do this one this way, as my patchwork ladies told me, you get less bulk. If you do it the same way as this, you can get bulk. I don't seem to have too much. Oh, there's a little bit of bulk in there, I suppose. So you would get it folding this way, but if you do it the opposite way, yeah, there is, yeah, no, I think there's less bulk. I think they're right. I know, you know, everyone to their own, but yeah, I'm just seeing what feels better when I'm finished. I might do it that way. Okay, so all you have to do with this is line up your little seam here. Okay, so you want to line that up. So just pop a little, I love these clips, a little clip in there and pop a little clip in here. And I just want to show you how to do this little bit so you know. Now, obviously, if you use the right foot for the right job, you get it's easier. So this is, screw loose, this is the number 10 foot. And it's got a guide down the middle, and so you can guide it down in your groove, and it's called stitch in the ditch. Okay, so if I put the number 10 foot on, tell my machine that I've got a number 10 foot on, and this is a 10D, so I can put my jewel feed on if I want. There's my 10D on, and this is my jewel feed. Put my thread under there. There we go. And I'll just have a little bit of a look and see. I'm going to do a little bit without the jewel feed and a little bit with the jewel feed and just have a look. So I'm going to put my 10D foot on. I've got my 10D foot on. I'm going to put my stitch length out and I'm going to start sewing. And I've put it on about 2.95, about 3 length. Now I'm stitching exactly in that ditch there to show you. Lift this up. Now this is where I normally have my awl and I forgot about that, so I'll just use a pin. A pin works well, and I'm going to stitch right to that point. Lift my foot up, one more stitch, and then I can turn my work. I'm just seeing if there's any difference. Sometimes it's good to use your jewel feed and sometimes you don't need it, but 9 times out of 10 it holds it better. Straight away you can feel it holds everything. So if I just come down here and show you. Now a lot of you don't realise, but you've actually got a stitch in the ditch foot with your walking foot. You know, that feels so much firmer and holds it better. So this foot here, and it's finished, this foot here is my 10D, but the sole, this sole, some of you have got a sole that looks like this and it fits on your walking foot. So check your walking foot box out, because you can pop the sole on your walking foot and do the same thing I've done. Okay, so that's what that is. So let's have a look now. Here's the stitching on the binding on the front, and I've stitched in the ditch. Now by not pulling it over and using my jewel feed, I have got a perfect stitching line down here. Right, now have a look how interesting this is. So I didn't have the jewel feed on here, and it felt like I had pulled that over the same, but my stitching line went onto my backing of my table mat because it wasn't gripping the two bits of fabric together. Isn't that interesting? So as soon as I put my jewel feed on, it fed nice and evenly on the back as the front, but without the jewel feed, it was moving. Actually very interesting. I'd never have picked that at all, but it's good that I'm showing you. So by stitching in the ditch here, the jewel feed has fed that nice and evenly, and obviously I'll take that off and put gold thread on, but just to show you, I could put red thread on. So this placemat that I'm doing here, I'm highlighting it with gold thread. That's what I'm doing there. That's what you can see. Okay, so I will finish those. Normally I would stitch it all first, but that's just to show you. Right, now moving on. We are going to show you now how to do this beautiful, beautiful finish on a jacket. Now this here, this is the pattern. I've shown you before and you've seen all the jackets. This is the bespoke blazer. Now this bespoke blazer is not lined, so we want to make it look really, really, really nice. So what we've got is we've got our fabric, and there does happen to be a right and wrong side of our fabric, and I'm just going to put these, that's the right side there, that's the wrong side there, so I'm just going to put my opposite because I hope I've marked it. I have marked the right side of my fabric. You can mark it with chalk or you can mark it with a pin, whatever, so you know the right side of your fabric. So these are going to be two opposite seams, obviously. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish off all my seams with this Hong Kong finish. Now, I've showed you a Hong Kong finish before, but we used purchased binding tape. We are using fabric. So I found this wonderful men's shirting fabric, and I thought that would look amazing for the Hong Kong finish. So what you do is you simply lay it down on your cutter, and I'll put it this way so I can see. Now, if I'm doing 1/4 of an inch seam, I want to cut my binding 1 inch, okay? So 1/4 of an inch seam, I'm cutting my binding 1 inch. So on your rulers, you've got your 1 inch mark, and you line everything up. So line it all up and just make sure everything's nice and even, and then cut along here. Keep the pressure on. Oops. Yep, keep the pressure on, and you'll notice I'm cutting it on a bias. So by cutting it on a bias, you get this lovely finish where you're going to get all your stripes going on an angle, and the reason why you cut it on a bias is that your fabric will not fray. It's brilliant, it's really good. So now I'm going to put my right side of my fabric here to the right side of my garment. And do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put black thread on and my 1/4 inch foot, because I'm sewing a 1/4 inch seam. So don't think your 1/4 inch foot is just for patchwork. I use it all the time. So I'm going to put in a black bobbin and a black thread, and I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam, and then I'm going to use my number 10 foot again to do stitch in the ditch. Absolutely brilliant feat. Really, really good. So black thread on top, and again, this is cross wound, so it will lie on top. But this time, if you have a look, it's a new one. If you have a look, the end of the thread is smaller, so I'm turning this, remember, was this way here, and this one's smaller, so I'm turning this around, and it lines up with there, and then you have no problem with your thread getting caught. So just a really basic thing to really understand. I must admit, I do love sewing on these new 7 series. They are beautiful. So I have got my black thread in, and get rid of these horrible stickers. They're really annoying. If you're keeping your thread, put that in there. And I usually put my stickers, stick them to something because they end up in my rubbish bin anyway. So I am going to be sewing my seam here, my 1/4 inch seam, and then I'm going to be folding my work over. So it's right side to right side, and I'm using this lovely shirting, which is men's shirting, and I think it looks really good because with the grey, because inside my garment's going to look really smart. Oh, I need to tell my machine I've changed my foot. Growls at you otherwise because it's too smart. So I've told my machine I'm clearing my stitch length. Remember to clear your stitch length, and you're sewing straight stitch. 1/4 inch, no problem. You're not stretching your work or doing anything. I'd normally have my dual feed on, but it's only a small thing I'm doing, so it's fine, and it's all biased. The garment's a bit biased because it's been cut and it's curving around. So every single seam on my jacket will have this finish on it. Very smart. Now, one thing I am going to do is I'm going to turn my irons down because it's going to be too hot. And I'm going to turn my iron down because I'm working on a very lightweight fabric and it might burn it. So make sure you do that. I don't know if you've noticed, but I am so used to using my left foot now. I never use my right foot for sewing. Really enjoying it. It is very good. Keeping my back, I don't get a sore back or anything. I've got my height compensating chair and my height compensating table. Right. I'm putting my needle up, lifting my work out, cutting my work, and putting my number 10 foot back on that I've put somewhere. There it is. Making sure I tell the machine what foot I've put on. So go back, and 10D, putting my dual feet on. Now watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to iron. I don't need that, I don't think. There's nothing going to come off. I'm going to iron this away from my garment. So this is the right side of my garment, and I'm ironing my binding away. Okay? Now all I'm going to do is roll my binding over like that, and I'll use my little clippies. Use them for everything. I hardly use a pin. And I'm just going to clip. So it's, if I show you, there's my seam. I'm rolling my binding over my seam. Okay, I'll show you that again, and clipping. So here's my seam. I've pressed everything away from my seam. And then I'm rolling my binding over my seam. Okay? And you do that all the way along. So hold it away from you and roll it over. And if you want to use pins, then you would put the pin down the seam where you're going to stitch. So can you see you've got a little tiny bit of fabric on the back where I've pinned there? I'll do another pin and show you. So roll this over your seam and a pin. Put the pin through all layers, and it's going beside you in the ditch, and you can see it's catching the back. This is never going to fray. It's been cut on the cross, so you don't even need to trim it. If you do it a bit wider, you can trim it back. It's your choice if you're worried. I'll put another pin in. I'm pinning down my seam, and you can see it's caught. Okay? So now I'm just going to buzz along there, and that is how you do your beautiful Hong Kong finish on any seam. Now you'll notice, now that I've told you, you will actually notice that when you go to designer stores, the back neck of a lot of tops have got the Hong Kong finish, and a lot of designer jackets have the Hong Kong finish on them. So please look out for them, but do it. It just looks amazing. So I'm just going to hold my first bit of fabric, so I've got something to hold on to. and I'm just going to lengthen my stitch out just a little bit, and I'm running my edge of my number 10 edge stitch foot along my seam I have just sewn. I'm holding my thread there, my fabric, just to start, just so I've got tension on, and my jewel feed will do the rest. And then you are just running and looking at your guide, and it is sewing along your previous seam line. Isn't that brilliant? And it's such a nice finish. So tidy. So this is, you are doing this instead of overlocking your edges. You're doing your seam instead of overlocking and making a really neat finish. Yep. Move your knee control if you need to go around a curve. This doesn't go around curves, only goes straight. So if you're doing curves, you might need to stop and lift and move your work if you're doing curves. Okay? Then make sure that last bit is tucked under. And that is how you do a Hong Kong finish. Very tidy. Then all you do is put your right side to right side and press your seam open, and you've got this lovely, very smart finish on the inside of your garment. So I am going to do this finish on every single seam. So next time you should be able to see my finished result on my garment. So these are my facings. They're going to be going to, not together, they're going on another seam, but all the seams end up the same. Very, very tidy. Now I promised last time that I would show you how to make that really easy shrug that I gave Mum. Literally, I'm just going to put on my ordinary foot and I'm going to sew one seam. This is so easy, you will not believe it. So I'm using my normal 1D foot, jewel feed on, tell my machine I've done it, and check this out. Crazy. Now if you want to put your thread down through a foot that has no opening, remember I showed you once before, just pop your foot like that, pull your thread, and then put your foot on. It's just a really quick, easy way. I'll show you again. So if it's got no slit in the foot here or here, you simply just pop your foot, your needle through your foot, pull your thread, and then put your foot on. Simple thing, but it really helps. Okay? And you can put your thread in there to hold it. So, look what I've got here. This is a piece of fabric. I've put it in the notes. It's 120 centimeters across. It has a little bit of give. You can use this for summer, winter, anything you like. The depth is the length from the back of your neck, down to how long you want it. So this one is 80 centimeters. And all I've done is I've folded the right sides together, and I haven't stitched anything here. And all I am going to stitch is from the bottom up to my armhole. So I'll just see I've stitched one side. So these become armholes. Okay, so I'm just going to measure and see how far I've stitched up. So from there to there, 25 centimeters. It's actually 24 on this one, so I must have stopped a bit shorter. So 25 centimeters normally, I'm doing 24, and I will put a pin where I'm starting. You can make this any depth you like because this is your armhole, okay? So I'm starting here and sewing there, and it's done. If your fabric frays, you can overlock it, or you can 3-thread rolled hem it. This fabric doesn't fray, so I don't need to worry, but I will eventually hem the sides because I'll do a twin needle. So now all I'm doing is sewing my sides. Yep. And I am just going to go forwards. Oh, actually I'll push the lock off button. I'll lock it at the beginning and just let the machine do all the work with the jewel feed. So if you are using a stretchy fabric like this, I would put your walking foot on if you don't have a jewel feed. And that is how hard it is. You sew that side you sew this side, so all you're sewing is your two opposite pieces, and you've made a shrug. Now look what you do with it. Turn it through the right side. There's one arm. There's one armhole there. Push this through. There's the other armhole. Now watch what you do. So this is what I gave Mum to take on the plane so that she was a bit warmer. I'll come out actually so you can see it. I'll just come out here. Is that going to be too close? It is. Okay, I'll move the, look, I can move my table back. There we go. Move my table. Is that all right? Hang on, I'm disturbing the whole shooting match. So here's my armhole. Here's my armhole. Put your arms through like that. If you want to, this is the easy way of doing it. Boom, and go like that. So all you do is threading your arms through the armhole. You have got a little shrug, and this is the length. This is the 80 centimetres I was telling you about. If you want to, you can bring it right up here, and if you wanted to, you could put a little clasp on here. Okay? So all it is a little shrug. Now I have a similar thing that I wear if I'm reading in the winter because my shoulders get cold in bed, and it's just the same sort of thing. But one of my ladies is so clever. She said what you could do, if you want to, you could put a sleeve end on here. So she suggested a pair of socks, and I'm like, what are you talking about? She said I chop off the feet of the socks, turn them around, and the cuff of the sock I use as the cuff of my sleeve, and she joins them onto tops. I was like, okay, that sounds pretty cool. So let me take it off and show you. It is simply one long piece of fabric, sewn 25 centimetres up or whatever your length is. Leave an armhole and do the same to the other side. Turn it through to the right side, like that, and like that, and I just go like that, and then just flip it over. And you've got a top. And then you just rearrange it so it's all comfortable. Cool, eh? So that's a really easy way of making a top, and you can make this out of chiffon. You can roll hem it, you can do whatever you like, twin needle, anything. It's just very, very easy and quick to make a shrug. See, this table's great, isn't it? So I can push it around. Now the last thing I'm just going to tell you about, and this is because I'm always hounding people, this is how I get the ladies to make their stitch books for their machines. So I get a piece of fabric and I put all my measurements in. So I do, actually let me just check, I think I do 1 inch around the edge. Yep, so my book is going to end up, 30 centimetres by 30 centimetres. I love the way I do inches and centimetres. Then I measure down 2.5 inches or 6.5 centimetres, and I stitch between my lines so that I'm doing every single stitch on my machine. I put the number of the stitch so I remember, because they look totally different stitched. Then I put the thread that I've used, and I wrote down here, Love Bernina Love, so I put a heart and Bernina Love, and then I remember how that thread stitches. So it's a really, really good idea when you're wanting to learn your machine, but not only that, you will use your stitches more on your machine because you can really see what they look like. I'll get another couple of pages to show you. So these ones are waiting for me to do the numbers. So here's me mucking around with a variegated thread. Oh, it goes that way actually. And here's me mucking around, oh this one's pretty, with my beautiful variegated thread in my thick 30 weight. And this one is in another variegated. Now this was one of the first ones I did, and I decided to do pattern end, but now I don't because it looks untidy. So now I just, as soon as I get to my marks, I make the machine stop and cut. So I'm not going to pattern end anymore to finish my patterns because I think it looks untidy. I'm just stopping it at my line. Okay, so this is a great way to learn all the stitches on your machine, But now that I've done quite a few of these, I decided I like finishing at my mark and then putting my numbers in all at once. It makes it so much quicker and easier. So there's a project for over Christmas and New Year for you to do, haha, if you ever get time. But yeah, it's good fun, and you learn your machine and you learn your stitches. So there we go, there's some little bit of information for you, and a lot of fun doing your bindings, your double bindings, and remember you can always use them for clothing as well as patchwork. So I hope you have a good month, and I will see you again next month, and I hope you like my studio, so it should look a lot prettier next time. All right, see you later. Bye.